When people talk about World Cup legends, the same names always come up. Messi, Maradona, Pelé, Zidane, Ronaldo, and for good reason. Their stories have become part of football history. But the World Cup has also produced another kind of hero. Players who stepped onto the biggest stage in football, delivered unforgettable moments, and then slowly disappeared from the spotlight. Some scored goals that changed history. Some carried entire nations on their backs. Some became heroes for a single magical summer. Yet today, many fans barely remember them. This is the story of 10 players whose World Cup performances deserve far more recognition. These are the top 10 forgotten World Cup heroes. Number 10. Oleg's records are meant to be broken, but some records seem impossible. In the summer of 1994, Russia's Oleg Salenko achieved something that no player has managed before or since. He scored 5 goals in a single World Cup match. Russia entered the tournament with little expectation. Their campaign had already begun poorly, and qualification for the knockout stages looked unlikely. But in their final group game against Cameroon, Salenko delivered one of the most astonishing individual performances in football history. Goal after goal, Cameroon simply had no answer. By the final whistle, Salenko had scored 5 times. To this day, it remains the highest number of goals ever scored by one player in a single World Cup match. What's even more remarkable is that Russia were eliminated in the group stage. Salenko's tournament lasted only 3 matches. Yet despite that, he still finished as joint top scorer of the entire World Cup. Most football fans can name Golden Boot winners from recent tournaments. Very few remember the man who holds one of the World Cup's most untouchable records. Number 9, Josimar Brazil has produced countless football legends. Pelé, Romario, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho. But in 1986, one of the country's most surprising World Cup heroes emerged from nowhere. His name was Josimar. Before the tournament, he had never played a single international match for Brazil, not one. He arrived in Mexico as a complete unknown. Then everything changed. Playing as a right back, Josimar wasn't expected to score goals. Defenders simply don't do that, at least not normally. But against Northern Ireland, he unleashed a stunning long-range strike that flew into the net. The goal instantly became one of the highlights of the tournament. Then he did it again. Another spectacular thunderbolt. Another unforgettable moment. For a brief period, Josimar became one of the most exciting players at the World Cup. His story felt like something from a movie. An uncapped player suddenly becoming a national hero. Yet despite those unforgettable goals, his international career faded quickly. Today his name is rarely mentioned among Brazil's World Cup greats. But for one magical tournament, he lit up the biggest stage in football. Number 8. Pak Duek. Every World Cup has its giant killing story. Few were bigger than what happened in 1966. North Korea arrived in England as complete outsiders. Most people expected them to go home without making an impact. One man had other plans. Pak Duek wasn't a superstar. He wasn't even a full-time professional footballer. He was studying dentistry. But against Italy, one of the giants of world football, he produced a moment that changed history. The match was tense. Italy dominated possession. But football doesn't always follow the script. Late in the first half, Pak Duek found space and scored. The goal stunned the stadium. North Korea held on. Italy were eliminated. The football world couldn't believe what it had just witnessed. It remains one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. For North Korea, Pak Duek became a national hero. For Italy, he became the name they desperately wanted to forget. Yet outside football historians, few people remember the dental student who shocked the world. Number 7, Roger Milla. Most footballers dream of playing in a World Cup. Very few become legends at the age of 38. Roger Milla was already retired when Cameroon asked him to return for the 1990 World Cup. Many believed his best years were behind him. What followed became one of the greatest stories in football history. Coming off the bench, Milla brought energy, creativity, and belief. He scored 4 goals during the tournament. Each one seemed more important than the last. Cameroon defeated Argentina. They defeated Colombia. They reached the quarterfinals. No African nation had ever gone that far before. Then there were the celebrations. Every time Milla scored, he danced beside the corner flag. The images became iconic. Even people who didn't watch the tournament remember those celebrations. Cameroon's incredible run changed perceptions of African football forever, and Roger Milla became the symbol of that revolution. Yet despite everything he achieved, his name is often missing from discussions about the World Cup's greatest heroes. Number 6, Fabio Grosso. World Cups are often won by superstars. Fabio Grosso was not a superstar. He was a hard-working left back, the kind of player who rarely received headlines. But in 2006, he became Italy's most important player when it mattered most. Against Australia in the round of 16, Italy were struggling. The match seemed destined for extra time. Then Grosso won a penalty in the dying moments. Italy advanced. In the semi-final against Germany, the score remained level deep into extra time. Penalties were approaching. Then Grosso produced magic. His curling finish found the far corner and sent Italy into the final. The goal silenced an entire nation. Then came the final against France. After one of the most dramatic matches in World Cup history, everything came down to penalties. Grosso stepped forward. One kick, one moment. He scored. Italy were world champions. Without Fabio Grosso, Italy's 2006 triumph probably never happens. Yet today, when people remember that team, they talk about Cannavaro, Pirlo, and Totti. The man who delivered the decisive moments is often forgotten. Number 5, Diego Forlan. The 2010 World Cup in South Africa introduced fans to one of the strangest footballs ever used, the Jabulani. Players complained that it moved unpredictably through the air. Goalkeepers hated it. Strikers struggled to control it. But one man seemed to understand it better than anyone else. Diego Forlan. Uruguay entered the tournament as outsiders. They had history, but few expected them to challenge football's elite. Forlan changed that. Again and again, he unleashed powerful shots from impossible distances. The Jabulani seemed to obey him. Goals flew in from free kicks, long-range strikes, and moments of pure inspiration. As Uruguay advanced through the tournament, Forlan became their leader, their creator, their goal scorer, their inspiration. Match after match, he dragged his country forward. By the time Uruguay reached the semifinals, the entire football world was paying attention. Forlan finished the tournament with 5 goals and countless unforgettable moments. More importantly, he won the Golden Ball as the best player of the entire World Cup. For a few weeks, Diego Forlan was arguably the best footballer on the planet. Yet when fans discuss the greatest World Cup performances ever, his name is often overlooked. A tournament MVP, a semi-final hero, a player who conquered the most unpredictable ball in football history, and somehow one of the World Cup's forgotten heroes. Number 4, Paolo Rossi. Some football stories sound too unbelievable to be true. Paolo Rossi's story is one of them. Heading into the 1982 World Cup, Rossi was under immense pressure. Many doubted whether he deserved his place in the Italian squad. For much of the tournament, those doubts appeared justified. He struggled to score. Critics questioned him relentlessly. Italy themselves were hardly convincing. But then everything changed. As the knockout stages approached, Rossi exploded into life. Against Brazil, one of the greatest teams ever assembled, he scored a stunning hat trick. The football world was shocked. Brazil had stars everywhere: Zico, Socrates, Falcao. Yet it was Rossi who stole the show. He continued scoring in the semifinals. He continued scoring in the final. By the end of the tournament, he had scored 6 goals. He won the Golden Boot. He won the Golden Ball. And Italy won the World Cup. Few players have ever transformed a tournament so dramatically. From struggling forward to national hero, from doubted player to World Cup champion. Today, Rossi deserves to be remembered alongside the greatest World Cup performers in history. Yet his achievements are often overshadowed by more famous names from other generations. Number 3, Miroslav Klose. Football fans love statistics, goals, records, trophies. And when it comes to World Cup goals, one player stands above everyone else. Not Pelé, not Ronaldo Nazario, not Gerd Müller, Miroslav Klose. The German striker scored 16 World Cup goals across 4 tournaments, a record that has never been matched. What's remarkable is how quietly he achieved it. Klose was never the flashiest player. He wasn't known for spectacular skills. He rarely dominated headlines. Instead, he did something even more valuable. He scored again and again and again. In 2002, he announced himself with 5 goals. In 2006, he won the Golden Boot. In 2010, he kept scoring. Then in 2014, he broke Ronaldo's all-time World Cup goal-scoring record. The achievement should have guaranteed football immortality, yet somehow Klose is rarely mentioned in debates about the greatest players ever. Perhaps it's because he wasn't flashy. Perhaps it's because he played during an era dominated by Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Whatever the reason, football's greatest World Cup goal scorer deserves far more recognition. 16 goals, 4 tournaments, one record that still stands above them all. Number 2, Mario Götze. Every footballer dreams about scoring the winning goal in a World Cup final. Mario Götze actually did it. The year was 2014. Germany faced Argentina in one of the most anticipated finals in modern history. The match was tense. Neither team could find a breakthrough. As extra time ticked away, penalties seemed inevitable. Then came the moment. In the 113th minute, André Schürrle burst down the left side and delivered a cross into the penalty area. Götze controlled the ball with extraordinary technique. Without letting it touch the ground, he volleyed it past the goalkeeper. The stadium erupted. Germany erupted. History had been made. At just 22 years old, Götze appeared destined for greatness. This should have been the beginning of a legendary career. Instead, it became the peak. In the years that followed, injuries disrupted his progress. Then came a rare metabolic illness that affected his physical condition and threatened his future in football. The pressure of being remembered for one defining moment followed him everywhere. Every performance was compared to that night in Rio de Janeiro. Every season was judged against a standard almost impossible to reach. For many players, scoring the winning goal in a World Cup final would be the start of a fairy tale. For Mario Götze, it became a burden he spent years trying to carry. His recent career revival has reminded fans of his quality, but his story remains one of football's most bittersweet. The hero of Germany's greatest modern triumph, a legend in one moment, a forgotten hero in the years that followed. Number 1, Jorge Burruchaga. When people remember the 1986 World Cup, they remember Diego Maradona. They remember the hand of God. They remember the goal of the century. They remember one of the greatest individual tournaments in football history. But they often forget the man who actually scored the goal that won the World Cup. Jorge Burruchaga. Argentina faced West Germany in the final. The match seemed under control when Argentina built a 2-goal lead. Then Germany fought back. The score became 2-2. Suddenly, the World Cup hung in the balance. Everything that Argentina had worked for was at risk. Then, in the 84th minute, the defining moment arrived. Maradona received the ball and spotted Burruchaga making a run. The pass split the defense. Burruchaga sprinted forward. One touch, one chance. One moment that would decide football history. He calmly guided the ball past the goalkeeper. Goal. Argentina 3, Germany 2. World Cup 1. The stadium erupted. Argentina erupted. A nation had its champion. Without Burruchaga, there is no victory. Without Burruchaga, there is no iconic image of Maradona lifting the trophy. Without Burruchaga, football history looks completely different. Yet because the tournament belongs so completely to Maradona, Burruchaga's contribution slowly faded into the background. His goal remains one of the most important ever scored, a World Cup winning strike, in a World Cup final, for one of football's greatest nations, and that is why Jorge Burruchaga stands at number 1. Not because he was the best player on this list, but because he produced one of the most important moments in football history and somehow became overshadowed by the legend standing beside him. Football history remembers champions. It remembers trophies. It remembers the superstars whose names appear in every highlight reel and every greatest of all-time debate. But the World Cup has always been about more than just its biggest legends. It is also about the players who seized a single moment and turned it into history. The players who inspired nations. The players who shocked the world. The players who delivered when everything was on the line. From a dental student eliminating Italy to a retiree leading Africa's greatest World Cup run. From a forgotten goal-scoring record holder to the man who scored the winning goal in a World Cup final and disappeared into another player's shadow. These heroes may not dominate football conversations today, but their achievements remain woven into the history of the World Cup. Because while football may sometimes forget its heroes, the moments they created will live forever.